And joining us now is the Lieutenant Governor of Texas, Mr. Dan Patrick. Thank you for joining me. After months of anticipation, we now have what you have called the biggest tax cut in world history, $18 billion for Texas homeowners. In doing so, you've accomplished one of your long-term goals, the $100,000 homestead exemption, and much more. But of course, this will have to come to the voters for some approval on some of the biggest items in this package. What do the voters need to know before they make that decision, Governor?
Hey, thank you, Ryan. Thanks for having me back. So the $100,000 homestead exemption, which the Senate believed in since early March, all 31 senators have voted for it multiple times, and we'll pass it again tomorrow over to the House. The voters will go to the polls in November, and they'll have a chance to vote on this amendment. Along with in this amendment will be other things. But the last time that voters had a chance, Ryan, back in 21, to vote to increase the homestead exemption from 25 to 40,000. It passed with 85% of support. So I think this is even bigger this time because we're taking it up from 40,000 to 100,000. You know, Ryan, when I came into office in 2015 as lieutenant governor after 8 years in the Senate, the homestead exemption was $15,000, where it had always been, had never been adjusted up higher. And so we've gone from 15 in 2015, we increased it to 25, then 2 years ago to 40, and now to 100, which when I was campaigning last year, I said, before I leave office, I want it to be $100,000, and so I don't plan on leaving anytime soon. So in the future, let's hope it goes higher.
Between the appraisal caps, the homestead exemption, the school district tax rate cuts, it seems universally accepted that this package is a win for homeowners, for business owners, for second homeowners, as well as commercial and rental property owners.
Yes.
Seems like the losers in this deal may be renters and teachers, Governor. Is there any relief coming to them?
So great questions, Ryan. So first of all, let me say to the folks watching that $100,000 homestead exemption gives them a $1,200 to $1,450 on average tax savings every year. That's about $100 or more a month tax-free back to them that they don't have to pay in taxes. And that's a great transfer of conservative thinking in the Texas Senate and the House, and I appreciate Dade Phelan working with me in the last week, almost every day and night working on these issues together, along with the House members and Senator Betancourt on our side. But this is real money, Ryan, by the way. This is, if you have a home for 25 years and you're getting a $1,200 to $1,450 savings on the average home, that is about $330,000 in Texas today, some higher, some less, of course. That's $25,000 to $30,000 a year over their lifetime. That's a lot of money. Now, to your question on about renters, there's no way that we can. The Constitution prohibits us from sending money directly to people. So renters don't own the property. So none of this helps them directly. However, the landlords who own these apartments, Ryan, big apartments all over the state, they're getting a tax break. The compression will cut their school taxes up to maybe around 23%. That's significant for them. I believe that many will pass it on through just the competitive market. The apartment market is very, very competitive. And as soon as the first one gives 1 month of free rent or lowers their rent, the apartment complex down the street is going to have to do the same thing. So there's no direct way to help renters, but in cutting the taxes for all business properties, no matter what the business property is, that includes apartments, let's hope that the rents come down. I know there was an article in Houston just last week saying the rents have come down for the first time, even before this happened, because things are changing after COVID finally in that area. And then in the second area, you said renters and teachers. We did put in a teacher pay raise, right. $6,000 for rural teachers in our original bill 2 weeks ago. And we say $6,000 because there's a gap of about $8,000 to $10,000 between a rural teacher and a suburban urban teacher. And we also put in a raise across the board for several thousand for teachers in those areas. But we wanted to close the gap in rural Texas. The House decided this time that they wanted to stick on property taxes, so they've decided to take it out. But I know that we're coming back in October, or I believe that we are, to discuss school choice and school funding, and we have $5 billion. And this is important, Ryan. I actually haven't said this to anyone. I hadn't thought of it with so much going on. But we already have $5 billion set aside in the budget, and part of that is for teacher pay raises. So I believe we'll get to them, in October when we address the other education issues.
What does that teacher pay raise in October look like to you? Do you foresee that being tied to the governor's priority for education savings accounts? Is that right?
Well, it's not just the governor's priority. We actually passed school choice out of the Texas Senate in 2015, 8 years ago. We passed it again in 2017. We've never gotten through the House. Hopefully this time we can. I think we were close, to be honest with you, in the House this time. And obviously, there'll be an effort to try to make that all work together. Look, school choice is supported by 82% of rural Republicans, about 60% of independents, and almost 50% of Democrats. So when you look at the urban areas, the suburban areas, the rural areas, it has broad support. Parents want the ability to have choice. And that's children with disabilities, that's children in F&D schools, but it's also children in the A, B, and C schools where maybe the schools are fine, but the parents don't like, for whatever reason, what's being taught, maybe what books are in the library, or maybe that school's really a great school, but it just doesn't fit their child for whatever reason. They ought to have a right to move that child. And here's the deal, Ryan, we have 5.5 million kids in public school today, about 250,000 in public charters, about 250,000 in private schools today, and about 600,000 or 700,000 homeschooled. We don't really know the exact amount. On average, across the country, where school choice has passed, and it's passing in more and more states, about less than 5% of parents opt for school choice. So you would be talking about a very small number out of that 5.5 million that's in public schools. And the reason not that many opt for it, because Texas has a lot of great schools like other states, and parents are fine there. Mm-hmm. Kids don't want to leave their friends. So I think those who oppose it, it's much to do about nothing in terms of it's not going to undermine public schools. It's just not going to happen. But it's much to do about something for that parent who says, wait a minute, this is my child, and I ought to have a right to send them to the school that I want. Just like when they go on to college, you're not restricted in West Texas to only go to Texas Tech, and you're not restricted. And if you live in Denton, to go to UNT, and you're not restricted in Houston to go to the University of Houston. You can go where you want.
Quickly, Governor, on teacher pay raises, when that comes up, would you like to see a revival of the proposal the Senate already passed for the $2,000 to $6,000 raises, or something similar? Is that the idea?
Ryan, back in 2019, we put in the Senate, $2 billion we set aside for teacher pay raises. We were looking to increase teachers across the board about $5,000. We gave the school districts the opportunity to design their own system. Do they want to reward incentive? Do they want to spend it across the board? We have special programs to try to incentivize teachers to get more pay. My wife was a longtime teacher. My daughter-in-law was a teacher. My mother-in-law was a teacher. I actually did my own student teaching. I think teaching is a very noble profession, and they ought to be mm-hmm. paid like a profession and not just a job. And so we've always been supporting teacher pay. It's higher than it's ever been, but we need to continue to do it. And I think we do need to, whatever we do, the rural teachers need to get an extra bump because they're just behind, just so they can catch up. And so whatever the House looks, when we get there, this working with the speaker on this property tax package has been very positive, and I think we'll work together on that, and hopefully they can pass a school choice bill, and it'll be a great package, just like this property tax package is. And I know we didn't go into all the detail, Ryan, but besides the homestead exemption, I just want to be sure that all the small business people out there know if your business is $2 million, $2.5 million or less in revenues, you're not going to have to pay the franchise tax anymore. That's 67,000 businesses. 40% of all businesses that pay the franchise tax won't have to pay it anymore. And we're also going to, for the first time in counties of 75,000 and above, that we're going to elect several members to the appraisal boards. And so there's a lot in this package that we've not done before, and I'm very excited. It's a long road. We went into the second overtime period. But the truth is, Ryan, no one really has ever done an $18 billion package in the history of the world that I know for property taxes, and surely in this country. And there were lots of ideas, and it took a while to come up with the right package. And so we got to where we needed to get. And when the voters vote this October, or rather this November, on the constitutional amendment, it will take effect this year. They will get the savings this year of $1,250 to $1,450 based on the average home. It will differ depending on the value of their home.
A long road, but you say the wait is worth it. I want to
Yes.
cover one more
Sure.
topic relating to this big property tax package.
Yes.
Do you see this as the legacy item of you in the 88th session? Meaning, do you see this as something that is permanent and will continue to grow? And if so, how do we make sure that as a state we can fulfill the burden that we've put on ourselves to pay for all of our public education expenses in the way we have?
Yeah, great question, Ryan. Look, I don't worry about legacies. I just worry about trying to do the right job. When I ran for the Senate in 2007 or 6 and got elected in 7, or my first session, and then for lieutenant governor, my three big issues are pro-life, cutting property taxes, and protecting the Second Amendment. We've passed every Second Amendment bill you can possibly carry, from campus carry to open carry to constitutional carry. We have saved 300,000 babies, is what I'm told by the numbers, since we passed the sonogram bill that I wrote back in 2011, giving women going into an abortion clinic the opportunity to see the sonogram, because we knew it would change some of their minds, and the heartbeat bill that we passed, and now the biggest tax cut. So those are the three issues that I ran on. I don't worry about legacy. What I worry about is when I am no longer in office and I'm sitting on my front porch, retired, at least from politics, did I do all I could do when I had the power to do it? And the lieutenant governor's position, not me as a person, but the position is powerful, as is the speaker, as is the governor. And when you get the blessing to serve as the people have given me now this third time, and we still have 3.5 years left on this 4-year cycle, I want to be able to look back and say, not that I have a legacy, but that I do everything I could do and everything I said I would try and do. Because at the end of the day, Ryan, and you've been to the Capitol, when you walk down the halls, you see all these big montages of all the different sessions. Nobody remembers who anyone is, a few years after they're gone. No one really cares about who they are unless they're related to them when they see those montages. But that's not what we run for. We don't run to be remembered. We all should run, every member, the governor, the speaker, myself, to be sure that we leave the state in a better position than it was when we inherited. Rick Perry gave us a great foundation to build on, and I believe we've built on it. And whatever we do today, when we're all gone, then the next generation should be making us bigger and better. Look, Ryan, I value this so greatly. America looks to Texas as the America the other 49 states would like to be. Now, maybe New York and California haven't figured that out yet, but we're the place. That's why 1,000 people a day still move here. We've added 12 million people since the year 2000, and we're probably going to add another 10 to 12 million in the next 10 to 15 years. This is a state where people come and they believe that they can be given a chance at the American dream, and that's why we're growing. And that means we have to build to keep up with that growth. We also have to be careful that we don't overspend. I believe what we've done now, we can afford to continue to do. And by the way, the constitutional amendment on the homestead exemption, that's required. In other words, you can't back off from that. Once the people vote for that, that's in the Constitution. We always will have to find the money for that. So that's what we try and do, and that's what we try to do with this surplus. We've still kept about $15 billion in reserve, plus our rainy day fund of over $20 billion. Yeah. So we have more money in savings, Ryan, than the other 49 states combined, to my knowledge. Maybe Alaska has a lot because they only have a few people and they have a lot of oil. But outside of Alaska, we have more money in our savings account than all the other states combined. And so we're in good position, but we have to have good conservative stewardship moving forward.
With that $12 billion for school districts, your message to them is you can rely on the state of Texas to fulfill that in perpetuity.
Yeah, well, on the compression, that's that part, and I've said this, over and over in the last couple of months. The compression is not a guarantee like the homestead exemption, because if our sales tax declined in 1 year, you could always have an offset in any. If you have, as I said 2 years ago or 4 years ago, if you have a black swan event that we never predict, like we had COVID, things can happen where things can be adjusted in a year or two. We had a downturn in 2011. When we had a shortage because the economy was flat in the Obama administration. But here's the deal, Ryan. You have to look at these things in the long term, like you look in your investments in the stock market. You're going to have some years go up, some years go down. You have to look at how can you do it over the 10 years. So could you have an adjustment in any given year, or flat 1 year back up, just like now we have this big surplus? Yes, you could, but over time, we will continue to grow. If we continue to have a conservative, pro-business, pro-family, state will continue to grow. When I came into 2007, Ryan, my first budget that was presented to me as a senator was $160 billion. Today, this budget is over $300 billion. It's not because we're spending more. We have to stay within the inflation and population limits. We passed that bill for the Constitution, so we have to stay in our limits. But that's how much we've grown. And so if we just continue to do it right, and we were very careful how we spent this surplus, Ryan. Some of it's ongoing, but some of it's just one-time things. Like we created the TUF Fund, the New Texas University Fund. That's a one-time $3 billion. We don't have to do it again. We put $1 billion into parks and wildlife to buy land to build more parks. People love our parks. We don't have to do that again. So some things are one-time expenditures. One of my initiatives is to put $2.5 billion into mental care hospitals. We're building 7 or adding to other hospitals around the state for mental health care. And that was a one-time investment. So some things are ongoing, like a teacher pay raise or a property tax cut. Other things are one-time things. And then we saved a lot. So I think we've approached this, the House and Senate together. I think we've approached this, our budget writers, which we're heavily involved in our office, of course, and I am. I think we've done a good job on this. But you can always have a little variable. Really good year, maybe a down year, but
right.
we'll keep moving forward.
Well, Lieutenant Governor
Thanks,
Patrick,
Ryan.
these are big issues for an unprecedented time. We appreciate you joining us to walk us through it.